Do you have an older computer that isn't running well, or do you have a new computer and you want it to be optimized to run the best it can? Well, if so, stay tuned for this video. What is going on, guys? Chad here from How To Tech, the channel dedicated to helping you take your tech to the next level. And in this video, we are going to be talking about how to optimize your Windows PC. Let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, so before we get started, I want to go ahead and explain why you would want to optimize Windows and which systems this would be beneficial for. So which systems would it be beneficial for? It's technically beneficial for all systems. What you are essentially going to be doing by adopting some of these different settings is taking out the bloat, animations, and all the extra junk Windows or Microsoft adds in there to make Windows look more appealing and visually enhancing features that they added. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be toning those down, turning them off, and making Windows just a little bit more, you could say bland, but I like it because it makes it a little bit faster. So a good example would be you have a nice little animation that happens whenever you click a button, or it fades in and fades out. What happens is Windows already, during the animation, has already completed that task, and you're now waiting on something else, which adds more time. Another example would be, say you have a Windows 7 computer that is 7 or 8 years old now, and it's running a little sluggish. Now, what is something you can do? You might be able to adjust some of these settings, and then that computer might be decent enough for, say, like your grandma, or maybe even you, for checking email and checking Facebook and stuff like that. So those are good use case examples. So which versions of Windows would this be good for? I know this works with Windows 7, 8, 8.1, 10, all the versions of 10, and I'm not certain about Vista or XP, but I'm fairly certain it would work with Vista and might just as well work with XP as well. So let's go ahead and jump into some of these settings. So starting first, the easiest way to get to this on any system and all those different operating systems I mentioned is going to be the control panel. So on other versions of Windows, it's a little bit easier to get to. On Windows 10, you got to actually search for it. It's not just there by default. And once there, we're going to go to System and Security. If you don't see it in this layout, you can click the View By and select Category. And we are now under System and Security. And we are going to look for System and click on System. And we are going to look to the left-hand side of our screen, and we're going to find Advanced System Settings. Now I'm going to close this other window, get out of our way. And we're also going to click on Performance Settings. So we find Performance under the Advanced tab and Settings. So we are now where we need to be. And we can see all the different junk Windows thinks is best for your computer, because Windows wants Windows to look nice, because it's competing with Mac and Linux. And Mac on top of anything is just beautiful and nice animations and stuff like that. And Windows, they still want to look pretty nice, even though it's the more affordable option. So let's go ahead and adjust this to make this be better for performance. So let's actually click for advanced, for better appearance, for best appearance. And you can see it checks absolutely everything. And for best performance, you can apply and it unchecks everything. So that is great. And that works good. Unfortunately for me, it doesn't work too well, because if you do it on your own computer, you might be able to tell some of these fonts don't look good. And there's just some other stuff that I've grown accustomed to seeing, and I just feel like maybe it takes me back too far as far as the years, as far as aesthetic, whenever it gets too bad. So what I like to do is I like to actually leave some of these things on. All the animation controls, peak and fades, and stuff like this. This is just bells and whistles of like, hey, this is fancier looking than just doing it. Let's add something that's a little flair to the end of it. So let's fade something in. Let's have something pop around. Not going to enable any of those. Peak, don't need that as well. All these fades, once again, taskbar thumbnail previews, shadow under the mouse pointer. Why would we need that? I don't really know. And I guess maybe if you lose your mouse pointer a lot, it's easier to draw emphasis to it, maybe. I don't know. Thumbnails instead of icons, no. Translucent selection of rectangle, that would be this. I can actually show you guys what this looks like without it. It's blue. It's, once again, it's just something that looks a little bit better. Windows contents while dragging. So for example, if we opened up like 2 of these and we were dragging something from, or even something from like the documents folder, the downloads folder, and it would show the icons of what they are. So that might be neat for some people. Some people might not give a rip. So Let's see. Slide open combo boxes. We don't need that as well. Here is something that I do like enabled. Smooth edges of screen fonts. So something you might not be able to tell that I can definitely tell is the difference of the quality of the fonts whenever some of this stuff isn't enabled. So smooth edges on screen fonts, it just kind of rounds the fonts off a little bit more and makes them a little bit more pleasing to the eye and not as sharp. And I think that makes the Windows experience just look a little bit better. Smooth scrollless boxes, this is something I keep checked as well. So if you're scrolling up and down the page over here on the side and you're like looking at somebody's Facebook feed or something like that, this would keep the page from like stuttering and jumping. So for example, if you look at my pointer, like your page would jump, 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 jump while you're scrolling. Instead, on Windows, whenever you have this checked, whenever you scroll, it kind of smoothly scrolls up and down the page. A little bit more aesthetically pleasing. I'm used to it, so I like it. Another one is use drop shadows for icon labels on the desktop. This is actually something that I feel like might be bugged in this version of Windows that I'm using, because the shadow seems to be tied to the smooth edges on screen fonts, which is something that hasn't always been the case, which I find kind of weird. I don't know why it's doing that. But on older versions, you can uncheck this, and this will get rid of the shadow underneath, like say the recycle bin or other text. So I typically leave this on depending on which background I use. And the reason why I would do this, let's give an example, is say your background's white and this text is white. It's hard to read it if there's not a drop shadow, or it's hard to tell what the icon is if the icon is white itself. So I typically leave these three things on. Windows performs very well, and if you're rocking like an older system like Windows 7 or maybe even Vista possibly, these settings are going to help Windows perform a lot better. Let's talk about a few more things. So these are some things that can apply to Windows 7, 8, 8.1, 10, all those other things, and maybe even XP and Vista. Let's talk about some stuff that might be a little bit different from system to system, and that is your settings for like the taskbar and the transparency. So I'll show you guys what that kind of is in a second. So we're gonna go into the settings on Windows 10. Once again, this might not apply directly to other versions of Windows, but on Windows 7, you can go to your control panel and go to themes, and you can adjust the personalization of that. So on here, there is one thing I just really want to draw attention to, and that is, let's see, it is under, I believe themes, could be wrong, might be under color. Yeah, it's under color. So if you go under colors on here, you can actually adjust the transparency effects. So you can see there's blue hint intent to this. This is not solid black. We check those. This becomes a solid color now. That does not change depending on the background behind it. And this becomes a solid color. Now, you might not think, well, that doesn't do hardly anything. It's the compounded, essentially, factor of all these different settings having minute compute power of figuring out what's going on back here, figuring out what's going on back here, so we get this color right. What we're essentially doing is we're taking that guesswork out, and it doesn't have to compute that anymore. It's something very simple, but it could have a magnified effect the more stuff you turn off. So that's what I would suggest doing there. And there's actually a few other things for newer versions of Windows. So once again, some of these other things aren't going to apply to Windows 7, 8, and stuff like that, depending on the things and the places what they're at. So the next thing I would do is I'd actually go to Start, and I would turn off everything except for Show App List and Start Menu. This keeps them from showing suggestions that you don't want to see, and this just shows recently opened items and jump list on the Start taskbar. This just doesn't have to propagate it anymore, so it's just going to stop it from searching and things like that. It's just one less thing your computer has to do every single time you get on. So that is a big one. And another thing I like to do then is, let's see, I don't think I have anything else there, so that's good. So we'll click the X to close it out, and then is to clean up the Start menu. So we'll click on the Start menu, get rid of all this stuff, and I believe you can unpin the whole groups now, which makes it 10 times faster. So yeah, I'd right click, unpin those groups, and now your Start menu is a plain Jane Start menu. This helps with things loading, and if you do this might just help with your computer. We'll see. One Once again, this is all dependent on your use case and may or may not help. The next thing I would do on Windows 10 is right click this, get rid of the Cortana button, get rid of the task view button, get rid of the people on the taskbar, and then get rid of search. And this right here is my go-to for making sure Windows runs at the most optimal and high performance speed for pretty much any of the Windows computers I've dealt with within the last 10 years. These are settings that can vary on where you find them on different operating systems of Windows, but the first settings that we looked at are pretty much set from at least Windows 7, maybe even Vista, all the way to Windows 10. So hopefully these settings are helpful for you. So that's going to be all for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If this helped you, make sure to drop a like, comment in the comment section down below what about this helped you, or if it did, or if it didn't. And that's going to be all for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Chad from How To Tech, the channel dedicated to helping you take your tech to the next level, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.